Kobbie Mainoo. Goodness me. Goodness me, what a footballer.
He's so elegant on the ball. He can drop his shoulder. He can drive forward. And he's just so calm. He's playing like he's a 35-year-old veteran.
As a teenager, Kobbie Mainoo has exploded onto the football scene. And he's done so in a different way compared to previous young English stars. Over the past 25 to 30 years, England has produced many excellent attacking talents. Michael Owen was a physical marvel with a skill set ahead of his time. Wayne Rooney's versatility was a superpower during his prime. In today's game, Jude Bellingham has transformed himself into a goals and assists monster playing further forward with Real Madrid. In comparison, England hasn't developed a ton of high and deep midfielders over the years, which is why Mainoo has generated so much buzz. It is one of the reasons why he was not only part of England's Euro 2024 squad, but played regular minutes during the tournament despite being only 19 years old. However, there's an interesting thing going on. Here is a polar chart of Kobbie Mainoo's 2023-24 season using data from MBAPPE. If we take a look at it, the dribbling numbers stand out, with some activity defensively as well. But the passing and creation metrics are very low in the stats chosen here. Not what you would expect from someone of his archetype. That was a very basic example, but if you've been on certain sections of football Twitter, there's a chance you've likely seen charts of this variety floating around. It's led to a section of fans and analysts wondering whether the Mainoo hype has gone overboard. A counter has been that the complete mess that was Manchester United last season means it's hard to take these metrics seriously. And so, this video will try to answer the following questions. What is Kobbie Mainoo right now, and what can he be going forward? The strongest part of Mainoo's skill set in possession is his dribbling. For a 19-year-old, he displays a level of calmness and maturity when carrying the ball that you don't often see from someone his age. Whether it be receiving during early build-up or trying to create space in the opposition half, he's got tidy footwork to make things happen. The biggest clubs in the world are constantly looking for midfielders who can escape pressure and break the opposition press. There will be the occasional mishap in deeper areas leading to high turnovers, and he can sometimes get bumped off the ball because of a lack of strength given how young he is. Mainoo is pretty good at making quick decisions after a successful dribble, but the more ambitious attempts aren't quite there yet. Although not flawless, the pluses definitely outweigh the minuses in this area. What's been interesting with Mainoo has been his positioning. For someone of his archetype, you'd expect him to be constantly involved during the early phases of build-up. Yet, it's common to see him operate as a high 8 within the front 5. This is one of the reasons why FBref had him in the 45th percentile for open play attempted passes per 90 among Premier League midfielders. He'll occasionally attempt runs in behind to stretch the opposition, although his lack of explosiveness makes it harder for these attempts to fully shift the defense. You also see a few moments of him trying to make short runs into the box. Mainoo's passing is kind of a question mark at this stage of his development. During early phases, he's comfortable making sideways passes even while pressured to find openings. This also shows itself when combining with teammates. He's got good instincts for helping connect play when a teammate is in a tough situation, which lets him be involved in quick passing sequences. There's a level of cautiousness with his decision making in terms of not trying more aggressive passes between the lines, even though it's clear he's got good weighting to his delivery. When coming deeper to receive, Mainoo isn't going to immediately look to switch to play or try Hollywood passes over the top, even when given time on the ball. Rather, he likes to control the tempo and avoid risk. It's hard to tell just how good of a final third passer Mainoo is right now, in part due to a lack of experience and the unique system he's playing in. The weighting of his passes can be a bit erratic around the final third, and being a bit conservative with his pass selection doesn't blend well with the constant need to find home run passes. However, there have been a few moments where he shows the kind of playmaking you'd want from an 8. In his favor as well is that he was in the 82nd percentile for completed through balls, which in combination with the dependable speed of his passes in earlier phases, might be an indicator that he could be an above average playmaker in the future. Mainoo's defensive work is something of a mixed bag at this stage. He's currently not an elite athlete in terms of engine and acceleration. It's also fair to point out that the unique approach Manchester United employed out of possession wasn't conducive to his skill set. There were tons of space between the lines, Yet the constant need to force high turnovers and generate fast attacks led to a lack of structure. Opponents could take advantage of this with tons of transition opportunities. According to Understat, only Newcastle and Luton Town conceded more fast attacks than Manchester United last season. Even with that massive caveat, you can see some of the flaws with Mainoo defensively. He doesn't have the quickest first step, which leads to him losing certain 50-50 balls. This looks even more stark when compared to someone like Sean Neves, who I profiled in a previous video for the channel. The non-elite athleticism Mainoo possesses plays a part in his defensive groundwork, where he's more limited in how much space he can cover. Again, how United operate defensively as a whole would make it tough on anyone, but Mainoo isn't someone to clean up a ton of defensive messes. When Mainoo is in position, he holds his own when attempting to win ground duels. Despite not having an opposing physique, he can get inside position to bump the opponent and gain possession. He's also pretty good jabbing at the ball with a standing tackle, especially when trapping the opposition near the touchline. If he does get beat off the dribble, you'll see him try to win the ball back with a sliding tackle. Watching Mainoo press up in the opposition half following a turnover can be an adventure. Sometimes they'll work out and end up with a regain of possession, but there'll also be wild gambles which don't work and end up with a vacated midfield. In terms of off-ball awareness, Mainoo has his good and bad moments. At times, he can smartly detect runs right in front of him and make necessary rotations. There are other situations where he can be susceptible to ball watching, or being too late to recognize things happening around him. Trying to evaluate Kobbie Mainoo right now is an interesting exercise because he's so early into his career, so his development can go in different directions. We can look to all-in-one metrics for a rough idea on his present value. One of those is a new hybrid model called MBAPPE, created by Cayton. It combines plus-minus and event data to estimate a player's impact on their team's non-penalty goal differential. These kind of metrics can be a useful tool, although they certainly have their flaws, since football is such a complex and dynamic sport that it's tough to isolate individual impact. Mainoo looks to be more or less average when compared to others at his position. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as it's really hard to be a positive contributor as a teenager in perhaps the toughest league in the world. Among midfielders around his age, he holds his own but isn't seen as spectacular. The grades for Mainoo reflect that his best skills are around solo progression, with okay contribution on defense. That mostly tracks with what was seen in the film. Despite the middling statistical case, I'm higher on Mainoo than the analytics community for a couple of reasons. One is that Manchester United were one of the biggest messes in European football last season. The easiest way to show this is that within the big 5 European leagues, United were among the worst in non-penalty expected goals conceded. This stat wouldn't be a shock to those who regularly watched them last year. Mainoo wasn't blameless, and his lack of athleticism played a part in their defensive woes. But almost any young midfielder would find it tough in this environment. In a way, United finishing 8th is surprising, although not completely shocking when looking at the past 10 seasons. The difference is that their financial resources is so much superior to everyone else on the list, so having this kind of season is a much bigger disappointment. The other reason why I'm more optimistic on Mainoo's value is based on the skill he is best at right now. Midfielders who can withstand pressure with the dribble and during carries are incredibly valuable, especially when they're not even 20 years old yet and are a few years away from their physical prime. You see these moments from him where you can't help but be impressed at how savvy an operator he already is. It's possible in a normal environment, and with more experience, he turns those artful dribbles and carries into high-level moments of progressive passing. How good Mainoo becomes in the future depends on numerous factors. Does he become more aggressive with his pass selection? How much does he improve as an athlete? Will the athletic improvements lead to a greater focus defensively or going forward? The answers to these questions will dictate what kind of midfielder he ends up being during his peak, and how much impact he can provide compared to his peers. Manchester United are slowly but surely building up a core of young talent which could one day help drive the club back to title contention. Mainoo's progress will be key to how United try and build their next title-winning side. Surviving regular minutes as a teenager in the Premier League is a good start, but that doesn't guarantee future stardom. It will be fascinating to see whether he improves in year 2 or experiences a bit of a second-year slump. I think right now, Kobbie Mainoo is somewhere between an average to slightly above average Premier League player, and if he shows considerable skill development over the next few years, he could be a great midfielder during his peak. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Here are some other videos I've done for the channel so far. I hope you all are doing well, and I'll catch you next time.